Hey, what's going on, you guys? This is Madam, and I'm coming back to you once again. This time, we're going to go over to the RawStory, and this is about the biographer drops explosive claim Epstein terrified of Trump but was ready to expose him. I will list the article writer and all of the details in the description, as I always do. It says Jeffrey Epstein was very much afraid of Donald Trump, but was starting to get to the point that he might publicly talk about this relationship when he was arrested and died in 2019, Trump biographer Mike Wolff said. Appearing on the Court of History podcast on Thursday, Wolff was discussing email released by Congress this week in which the financier and SEX offender frequently mentioned Trump and also discussed with Wolff ways to deal with and potentially benefit from his former close relationship with the U.S. president. Epstein died in prison in 2019. On Wednesday, a huge cascade of his emails was released by the House Oversight Committee, alongside Speaker Mike Johnson finally saying he would hold a vote on releasing the Epstein materials held by the U.S. government. The release produced sensational details and headlines. A day later, in what was billed as Wolff's only interview about his presence in the Epstein files, through he himself, a co-host of the Daily Beast podcast Inside Trump's Head, the writer was quizzed by Court of History co-host Sidney Blumenthal, a former advisor to Bill and Hillary Clinton, and Sean uh, Wizen, Wyson, I apologize for butchering that last name, a Princeton history professor. Wolff has often discussed his relationship with Epstein, including extensive interviews about Trump that Wolff conducted as he wrote books on the property uh, magnate turned two-term Republican president. Blumenthal cited an email from December 2015, and Trump has announced he's running for president in 2016. And you explained to Jeffrey Epstein that CNN is likely to ask Trump about his relationship with him, which was long closed until two men fell out. Uh, and Epstein asked you and what your thoughts about Trump would answer. And you replied, I am going to quote you. I think you should let him hang himself. If he says he hasn't been on the plane or to the house, you can hang him in a way that potentially generates a positive benefit for you. Or if it looks like he could win, you could save him generating a debt. Asked why he wrote that email, Wolff said that in late 2015, he, among many others, were increasingly alarmed about Trump's candidacy and understand that one person who had the potential to damage this candidacy was Jeffrey Epstein. I'm not the only person who understood that. When I was with Trump ally and advisor Steve Bannon, when he met Jeffrey Epstein in 2017, the first thing that Bannon said to Epstein was, "You were the only person I was afraid of during the campaign." Wolff added that in advising Epstein, he had been trying to encourage Epstein to use what information he had to get Trump. And in this instance, that would have been an interesting way to approach this. Let Trump publicly tell a lie, then expose the lie. Now, Epstein, he would go back and forth, and I think he would suddenly entertain this possibility that he could do this. But at the same time, Epstein was without a doubt very much afraid of Trump. So in the end, I think that he was starting to get to the point that he might publicly talk about this relationship. But then he was arrested and died. first convicted and sentenced in 2008 on Florida state charges of solicitation of a prostitute and solicitation of prostitution with a minor under the age of 18. Epstein was freed in 2009 but arrested again in July 2019 when Trump was 2 years into his first White House term. Charges with sex trafficking of minor and conspiracy to commit sex trafficking of a minor. Epstein was found unalived in his prison cell in New York in August. 5 years later, in 2014, Trump campaigned for president on a promise to release the Epstein materials held by the federal government and thereby expose his link to the powerful men. Once in office, Trump reneged to the fury of many of his supporters, his own supporters. Differential and favorable Department of Justice of Ghislaine Maxwell, Epstein's former partner, who was jailed on sex trafficking charges in 2022, has also fueled suspicion about Trump's Epstein link and the content of the so-called Epstein files. The email released this week also contained a bombshell reference to Trump having spent hours at Epstein's house with an Epstein victim whose name was redacted but who the White House said was Virginia Giuffre. Giuffre unalived herself earlier this year. Last month, the publication of a posthumous memoir resurfaced scandalous claims about former prince that just goes by Andrew now and other men. Giuffre did not accuse Trump of any wrongdoing, though widely accused of sexual misconduct, and found liable for SA in New York civil case in 2023. Trump vehemently denies all allegations of improper conduct linked to the Epstein or not. In the release emails, Epstein hinted that Trump knew a lot about his exploitation of young girls by staying quiet, making Trump the dog that hasn't barked. Another email written by Epstein to himself on February 1st, 2019, said Trump knew of it and came to my house many times during that period. He never got a massage. In other emails, Epstein wrote, of course, Trump knew about the girls and he asked Ghislaine to stop. Wolf told the court of the history that was a reference to a court case at the point Maxwell is pursuing a lawsuit stupidly with Virginia Giuffre and that had not worked out well for Maxwell because, as I recall, Virginia Giuffre countersued and there's a lot of deposition and Maxwell will have to testify, and that will mean that she will have to testify about all of this, including quite possibly about Trump. So that's what that's about. Wolf himself recently sued Melania Trump, the First Lady, after she tried to silence him in relation to her own Epstein link. He told Blumenthal and Windsor that crowdsourcing to pay for the suit was going well. As for Trump knowing about the girls, Wolf said that's a direct reference of what Trump knew about what was going on at Jeffrey Epstein's house. And it goes back to a couple of things. I've talked here before about the photographs that I've seen of Trump around Epstein's pool with a set of the girls who were often at Epstein's house. Wolf has repeatedly said Epstein showed him photos of Trump with young girls and a stain on his crotch. of his trousers. Photos Wolf believes likely have been taken by the FBI when Epstein was finally arrested. He continued, but then it was also Epstein's view that it was Trump who first alerted the police to what was going on at Epstein's house. So this was always a thing, and this was a thing that I propped, probed, Epstein on because I thought it was a smoking gun. Did Trump know what was going on at Epstein's house? Question mark. If so, why did he keep it quiet about it? And if he knew, what was the nature of how he knew, etc., etc. And throughout my discussion with Epstein about Trump, it was always you have the goods here. You have the power to cause Trump an enormous amount of trouble and possibly to bring him down. Actually, jumping 6 years later, that might in fact be what's happening now. And that is the end of the article right there. I have a couple of questions. First and foremost, I found it very weird that he would actually write an email to himself. I mean, it's not out the realm of impossible, but given the amount of contacts that he had and the type of things that are coming out as the emails become available and the things that he spoke of, I don't think that he would necessarily be the only person to write that to himself and not display that or express that to someone else that he had, conversations with and things like that. If especially with Maxwell, I'm going to refer to her as Maxwell because her first name is, uh, I always mispronounce it wrong, so I will say Maxwell, um, which is currently in a vacation prison, um, you know, because she lied during her deposition with the number two in charge and told him that she never seen anything inappropriate. However, newly released emails have contradicted her statements. Her recording with the number two in charge at the DOJ, where she's having a conversation with Jeffrey Epstein, and it is the dog that hasn't barked email. And she replied, I've been thinking about that. Well, how could you think about something that you had no knowledge of, and you yourself told the number two at the DOJ that essentially you never seen Trump be inappropriate, or he's always been a very nice and cordial man around you, etc., etc., etc. To Epstein writing an email to himself, why wouldn't he tell Maxwell that? Why wasn't that I'm not saying that the conversation never happened. However, they seemed very free, okay with corresponding between emails. And if he would say that Trump is the dog that didn't bark or has not barked, why wouldn't he be comfortable saying, Trump was never in, he never got a massage. He was there that he never got a massage. Like, it's giving me the vibe in the sense of, say, for example, the alleged email that was sent between the Utah shooter of CK and his alleged lover. It's given a sense of unrealness to me. Um, we have the technology, and this is the reason why I say it. We have the technology. We can change stuff in terms of like emails and stuff like that. But they said, hey, metadata matches. But then again, do those numbers match in Rockland County? Is those numbers matching up in Pennsylvania or Florida? Who knows? I'm just saying it's very possible for information correspondences to be manipulated in a way if you possess the technology to do so. Um, that's the only thing I'm saying. It's possible. But I don't know, you guys. You let me know. Also, the thing about it, I do believe that it is some type of retribution that is playing out with Epstein, regardless if it was any truth to him being afraid of Donald Trump or not. It seems that dead men can speak from beyond the grave. And that's exactly what's happening now. Shout out to Representative O'Connor, who took the suggestion from, um, you know, someone that he heard on the Lawrence O'Donnell show and took that to heart and put everything into play. And this is why we have an overabundance of emails from the Jeffrey Epstein estate. Just like Lawrence O'Donnell said in his, commentary on his show, why didn't the DOJ and Trump tap the Epstein estate and things like that? You know, I mean, who knows? It could be the very thing that might open up a couple of more doors, give more questions than the answers, and, compel people to find the answers to those questions even more, even without the release of the Epstein files. At this point, the release of the Epstein files could potentially be the cherry on top. But I don't think it would be the cherry on top. But for a lot of people, it would, because my feelings and thoughts about it, and my opinion about it, is that this goes way beyond Donald Trump. This goes way beyond potential people that may be in government or in business in the United States. This has the potential to be international. This has the potential to be global, in my opinion. Um, so I'm here for the ride just like everybody else. But let me know how you feel. Drop down in the comment section. I would definitely love to hear from you. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. And as always, thank you so much. I truly do appreciate you watching my videos, commenting on my videos, showing me your support, and showing me that you are listening. My gratitude. And with that, you guys, I will get with you in the next video.